Alright, how's everybody doing? Now, if you're watching this video right after I just published it, it's very likely that you're under some kind of a quarantine one way or another. Now, if you're going through a very hard time right now, no matter it's emotionally, physically, or even financially, I really wish you the best. I wish you can get through the hard time as soon as possible. For the rest of us, I think most of us are just sitting at home trying to wait it out so we can go back to our normal lives. The thing is, I truly believe there are things that we can do as individuals that can help other people to fight the pandemic that we're going through right now. The first thing is, if you have any kind of skills, you can use those skills to create something that can help other people, that can provide value to other people's lives. A lot of people are going through a very hard time right now. People are losing their businesses, they are losing their jobs, people are panicking, and it's not a very pleasant scene to look at. So if you can help them in the smallest way possible, people are going to appreciate it. And the second thing is, if you don't have any skills to create something with, and you have something that you've always wanted to learn, maybe now is the best time to learn it. Because, come on, you're under a quarantine. There's nowhere you can go. Nobody's gonna hang out with you. So instead of trying to find whatever entertainment that you can find right now, just to pass some time, maybe learning something valuable and useful would benefit you even more in the long run. And that is simply the reason that I'm making this video, and I'm planning to make some more videos afterwards as well and make them into a series. I want to create something that can be useful to you, and from your point of view, you can start learning something that you've always wanted to learn. By that something, I specifically mean programming. I consider myself a pretty good programmer. I've been coding for a couple of years now, and I feel like I've learned my coding the hard way. Simply because I didn't pay much attention to the fundamentals. I followed whatever I felt like at the very beginning. So in these videos, I want to share with you my journey and the lessons that I've learned along the way to help you to avoid some traps as well as save you some time. Programming is a very technical thing, but we're gonna talk about the fundamentals of programming in a non-technical way. I'm gonna avoid using technical jargons that might confuse you, and instead, I'm going to use a lot of metaphors and real-life examples simply because they are much more easy to understand. We're going to write a little bit of code as well, but there's nothing fancy about it, and you don't need to understand anything from the code. The purpose of this code is for you to have a general idea of what is programming really about. Because no matter what you do, the fundamentals are always the most important thing for you to master. When you master the fundamentals, you can pretty much do anything you want very, very easily. Let me give you an example. These days, there are tons of coding tutorials online that you can find very, very easily. They have titles like, let's create a professional website within an hour, or let's create an AI with only 10 lines of code. It sounds very, very promising, and maybe if you take the tutorial, at the end of the tutorial, you will end up with a pretty good looking website on your computer, but to be honest, there's pretty much nothing you can do afterwards, simply because you don't understand the fundamentals, which means after the step-by-step tutorial, you cannot transfer the knowledge onto something else. I took tons of these tutorials when I just started programming because they just simply sound promising. But after wasting a lot of money, I still had to go back to learn the fundamentals well in order to improve myself. I believe you are not that different, so this might apply to you as well. As humans, we do things simply because we want to get some results from it. Now, if you're a chef, all you do is pretty much turning raw food into something delicious. Now, you have customers that are hungry, that's the cause. You cook them some delicious meal, that's the process, and you put the food on their table so they can enjoy a delicious meal. That is the result. Cause, process, results. Now, if you're a driver, that's pretty much the same. All you do is pretty much get your passengers to point B from point A. Your customers need to catch a plane or they want to visit a friend, whatever. That is the cause. You take them physically from point A to point B. That is the process. Your customers physically be at point B. That is the result. It is also the same if you're a writer. If you are a writer, you come up with some crazy ideas and then you organize your thoughts into a structure and then you put them into words. You refine them, you publish them, you distribute the books into your readers' hands. Then after they read them, they might get some new information that they didn't know before, or they get entertained because you wrote a very good novel. Your readers want to read about something that they didn't know before. That's the cause. You put your ideas into words and publish them. That's the process. And your readers get entertained or they get educated from reading your book. That is the result. Cause, process, result. Same thing. Now, if you're a programmer, it's really not that different if you think of it this way. Maybe you come up with some ideas for an app, or you got hired. Your boss or your team wants to deliver some features to the customers. That is the cause. Then you come up with a solution and then you put the solution into code and make it work. That is a process. And maybe you host the application somewhere, like hosting a website, or you distribute the app in some ways. For example, publish it in an app store for other people to download, and your customers can enjoy the latest features after you publish them. You see, cause, process, results. They're all the same. Now, even though, like I said, a lot of things follow the same cycles, but things are still different. Being a surgeon is very different from being a chef, and being a programmer as well. If you're a programmer, then all you do is pretty much explaining logics to computers. And by that, I mean programming is the process for you to use some kind of programming language to explain what exactly you want the computer to do step by step. In general, programming is about dealing with inputs and outputs. No matter what application you create, you are going to receive some kind of inputs, and you are going to have some desired outputs that you want to have. It is your job to manipulate the input in a way in order for you to get your desired outputs. Let's say you want to create a photo sharing platform that enables everybody around the world to share their photos instantly with everybody else around the world. Now, users uploading the photos, that's the input, and users be able to see other people's photos immediately, that is the output. Now, let's use an even simpler example. Let's say you receive 1 as an input and your desired output is 3. Then the manipulation you need to do based on the input you receive is basically just add 2 to the input, which is 1 plus 2 equals 3. Here you get your desired output. You see, input, manipulation, output. But the manipulation part is not for you to do every single time when the application receives an input. Instead, your job as a programmer is to use whatever programming language that you choose to explain every single step that the computer has to do when it receives certain types of inputs based on certain types of scenarios. Now, here's the problem. There are hundreds of programming languages out there for you to choose. You're just starting out, you know nothing about programming. Which one should you choose? It's gonna be very helpful for you to seek advice from some senior or experienced programmers because they might give you a lot of useful information. But with that being said, I want to give you some tips when you do this. Number 1 is never take a single advice for granted, no matter how senior or how experienced that person is. Because as human beings, we all form our own opinions and we give out advices based on our own interest and our own experiences. we may not share the same interests, and our experiences are much likely to be different. So the advice I give you is going to be biased in one way or another. So to counter that, you can simply ask more people for their advice and then use all the information you get from different sources to inform yourself so you can understand better about what programming is, and then make up your own mind based on the information you have. And the second one is follow your own interests. Your interest is the best motivation that you can ever have. No matter how many motivational YouTube videos that you watch, they are not gonna last very long. But your own interests, that's a never-ending source of great motivation. If you like beautiful websites, then maybe you can start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You can create so many interesting and beautiful things by simply using JavaScript. And also, JavaScript is a very universal language, which means it runs pretty much everywhere. You can use JavaScript to create beautiful websites. You can use it to create some applications for your Apple computer. You can even use JavaScript to write a server to host a website with. On the other hand, if you don't care about beautiful websites, all you care about is powerful algorithms, or you want to create your own AI or machine learning algorithm, then Python might be a very good starting point. Python is super powerful. A lot of people create so many tools with Python that is just on the internet for you to grab and use immediately. So maybe you should consider Python as your best choice. Or maybe you don't care about beautiful websites or powerful AI or whatever. All you care about is to design your own system. You want to create your own system kernels. Then maybe you need to start with something much lower level. For example, C or C++ or C#. Simply because these languages will make things much easier for you compared to using some other higher level languages. As you can see, there's not a single solution to all the questions that you're gonna have when you start doing programming. The best thing for you to do is to ask yourself, what are you interested in? And then start from there to figure out what should you start with. It really doesn't matter what language you start with. No matter how high level it is or how low level it is, when you master one single language, then it's gonna be very easy for you to transfer the knowledge onto some other languages. Simply because even though programming languages seem so different, they share the same principles. Programming languages might seem tedious or not that easy to understand, but they work the same way, just as natural languages. Now I'm talking to you in English. Let's imagine that you are going to a restaurant to order 2 slices of pizza. Let's say each slice worth $5. Then 2 slices is going to cost you $10. Now we're talking about multiple terms here. We're talking about numbers. There's 2, there's 5, and then 2 times 5 is 10. We're also talking about names. We're talking about pizza, and we're talking about dollars. In programming, you create variables to hold the values. It's just like pizza is worth $5. Then pizza holds the value of $5. Now, 2 slices of pizza is worth $10. It's pretty much the same in programming as well. Let's say you have a variable called pizza, and it is equivalent to 5. If you use pizza times 2, you're going to get 10 in return, which is their value in total. When you write code, you're pretty much using programming language to manipulate data. Data has many types, but there are 2 very fundamental data types, which is numbers and strings. Numbers, as the name indicates, they're numbers. They might be very big, they might be super small, but you use them to represent numbers. And string basically means text. You can use it to represent letters, characters, punctuations, or words, sentences, paragraphs, and if you really want, a whole book. There are some other data types exist out there, but you can basically treat them as they are built on top of numbers and strings. For example, array. An array basically means a list of numbers or a list of strings. In dynamic programming languages, you can actually mix them up together. An array can have both numbers and strings in it. An even more advanced data type is called object or dictionary. It simply means comparing two arrays, which is a list of elements. In an object, you can actually give names to each single one of the elements inside the object to make it more intuitive or complicated in a way, but it's definitely gonna be more useful in many scenarios. For instance, the pizza example we just talked about can be represented by different data types. The pizza has a name, which can be represented as a string, Pizza. One slice of pizza is worth $5, which can be represented by a number 5. And those two are separated right now. Actually, you can combine them together. You can actually put both of those values into an object. Name it name, pizza, which is a string, and price equals 5, which is a number. In this format, they live together. So for everybody to see it, even though nobody understands code, it would be intuitive. This thing has a name called pizza, and it has a price of 5. You know, in programming, there's a very famous quote: talk is cheap, show me the code. And that is what we're going to do next, just as we talked about before. So why don't we just jump into the code and stop the cheap talk now? First, I'm going to create a web page real quick, just to put some basic stuff in place. Alright, now let's move everything to the center of the screen, so everything will look a little bit more pleasant. This web page is going to mimic a special kind of restaurant, in which the chef only has 2 items on the menu, and for each item you want to order, you have to give the chef the necessary material for him to use to cook you the food. I know, it's not the most convenient restaurant in the world, but hey, the food is good and it suits our purpose for this demonstration. So let's go ahead and build it. By the way, this is Chef Adam. He's the one in charge. So he's gonna be here to take the orders. And we need 2 more text fields for the customers to type in the right ingredients. In addition to that, we need a button which acts as a bell to notify the chef to start cooking. Now, if the ingredients are correct, you will get the meal you ordered. But if not, Chef Adam would get super angry and then he would become super sad, simply because he's a man full of sorrows. Did I mention before that you're responsible for everything that happens in the apps that you develop? Well, if I didn't, now you know. It's the same in this case as well, which means we need to define exactly what Chef Adam has to do. To achieve that, we need to write some functions. We need to get the values from both input fields, and then after the customer rings the bell, Chef Adam has to check both of the ingredients to see if they are correct or wrong. The 2 items on the menu are salad and pizza. For salad, you need to give him spinach and tomato. For pizza, you need to give him pepperoni and cheese. Let's go ahead and write everything in the script. Alright, the coding part is finished. Let's test it. Let's give the chef tomato and spinach, and here we go. We got the salad. How about cheese and pepperoni? Here we go. Pizza it is. How about we try to make a salad again? Here we go. We got it. Now, what if we don't give the chef anything and ask him to cook? Alright. Chef Adam got super angry and yep, he got sad. As you see, like I just showed you, to create something functional and interesting with code doesn't have to be very complicated, and it can be quite easy. If you want to create whatever you want with programming, then you really have to understand the fundamentals well. So be patient and enjoy the process, because after a while, if you really treat this thing seriously and take your time to understand the basics and the fundamentals, you are gonna thank yourself in the future. Believe me, that's really what I've experienced. In addition to that, remember this also. No matter how fancy and complicated other people's code look, they're still dealing with fundamentals one way or another. The fundamentals that you should understand from the very beginning. So after my explanation in this video, I hope you can understand that coding is not something particularly harder than anything else that you do in life. It does require a different kind of mindset, but it can be easy if you understand the fundamentals. Of course, if you really want to master coding, then you have to put a lot of time and effort into it. So as everything else, everybody cooks. I know how to cook, but I'm not a very good chef. If you want to be a 3-star Michelin chef, then you might need to dedicate your life to that craft. Coding is the same. So I'm gonna explain more things about coding in future videos. So make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you soon. I need to sleep.